Hi, this is Mitch Tropin. I have another video chat to share with you. This one deals with the problem of doing effective research on the internet. And this is a problem that plagues many first-year students. In many of your classes, you will be required to do research, and not surprisingly, you'll want to be able to make use of the internet. Granted, APUS's online library has a fine database, but for many issues, you'll still be wanting to take advantage of one of the most incredible inventions of the 20th century and one of the most incredible inventions of the 21st century, the internet. You probably could take all the great libraries of the world and if you combined all the information they contained, it still would probably be a fraction of the information available on the internet. Cyberspace is truly phenomenal. Almost any subject you can imagine, almost every viewpoint. However, the internet is definitely a two-edged sword. For as much good, helpful, reliable information available on the internet, there probably is an equal amount of information that is totally wrong, deliberately misleading, information that is somewhat correct, but where the information has been shaved or slightly twisted or tweaked to meet a political or social agenda. And then the third category, the most frustrating website of all, information that when initially posted was fair, accurate, totally useful, but facts and circumstances had overcome these facts, and the information now is out of date and wrong. This third category causes tremendous problems for students who see what is a legitimate website and feel that this is information they can use, only to find out when they get their papers back that this information was wrong, that a Supreme Court decision, an act of Congress, or just continuing developments had taken a piece of information and made it completely wrong and misleading. So what I'd like to talk about today is how to surf the internet safely. And just as just nowadays, with the crazy drivers on the roads, we drive defensively, we must learn how to surf defensively. And I can give you a few tips that will help you evaluate where your information is useful and reliable. Let me take the problem of time-sensitive information first. Be very wary of any information that is more than 5 or 6 years old. That is sort of asking for trouble, unless it's a basic fact explaining something. If you have a key piece of information, you may want to Google it or go to a news organization's website. For example, the New York Times has nytimes.com. Another good one is the WashingtonPost.com. Also usatoday.com. Or Associated Press's website, ap.com. Put a piece of your information or put your topic into the search engine and see if there's been any recent development that would change the validity of the information you plan to use. In other words, if there's any doubt in your mind that this information might have been affected by more current events, double check and make sure. Never just take a piece of information and not double check whether it's still current and accurate. A quick example, I had a student who actually came with a very good idea for a paper. She had found that the Supreme Court had ruled that people who were 18 and older were definitely eligible for the death penalty. Argument being that at 18 you knew what you were doing and should face the consequences. But there was another Supreme Court decision saying if you were 15 and younger, you were too young to understand the consequences of your actions, and if you were that young, you could not face the death penalty. She wisely saw that a gap had been created by the two court decisions, and has started to do a paper on whether the Supreme Court, whether the death penalty should apply for those who are older than 15 but younger than 18. And she did a good job. But she failed to check whether there had been some development within 2 weeks of her paper. And sadly, the Supreme Court had actually acted on that question and had ruled that 15 to 18 were not eligible for the death penalty. So a lot of good time and effort had been wasted. Not totally wasted. The paper wasn't totally a failure, but certainly it was not as good as it could have been had she done a little bit extra research. So always check to make sure your information is timely. When the internet first started, most websites always had some information on when the website had been updated, usually putting a date in the corner of the website's home page. They don't do that anymore, so it's incumbent on you to take on that task yourself. Also, if something is an issue that clearly involves legislation, something before Congress, something that involves litigation, be extra careful. A good example, back in the 1980s, there was a big push on immigration, issue that's recently been revived. A group of Republican senators had proposed a bill that would have required the immediate deportation of an estimated 12 million people who lacked proper documentation. The bill was so strongly opposed by so many people who felt it was unfair to somehow round up 12 million people, saying many innocent people would have been harmed, that within a week the bill was withdrawn. Alas, I had students who decided to write about immigration, went to Google, saw that there was this bill, and never checked to see what was the current status of that bill. They wrote these papers decrying the proposed legislation, and I had to tell them that their papers were not successful because the bill had been withdrawn and their arguments were moot. So a little extra effort is worth avoiding an ocean of grief later. Another thing you should always do when you're using a website, check out who is behind the website. Because of changes in the way people name their websites, it's not always clear who is behind the website, who's responsible for the content. When the internet started, it was not unusual for groups just to use an acronym for the organization's name for their website. American Diabetes Association was ADA.org, American Heart Association, American Heart Association. However, when Google became the main way of finding information, those organizations whose website was based on their initials were often left out of Google searches. So they changed their names. Diabetes.com, the Diabetes Organization became diabetes.org. American Heart Association became heart.org. This seemed to solve the problem of being left out of the Google searches, but another problem was caused. It was not unusual for some corporation, some other group, to create a website that sounded very similar. Diabetes.org was definitely American Diabetes Association, but if you put in the word diabetes, it also would call up diabetes.com. And only through a careful examination of the website would a person find out that diabetes.com was a website created and maintained by the third largest pharmaceutical company in the world, GlaxoSmithKline. Now, the website wasn't deceiving, but because GlaxoSmithKline is a for-profit corporation, they had a conflict of interest. Did they give all information regarding development in diabetes research and medication, or did they give more emphasis to drugs and developments that benefit GlaxoSmithKline? In other words, it wasn't a bad website, but one would be hesitant to use it as opposed to using the American Diabetes Association's website. ADA has been a long-standing nonprofit group that's only intent on distributing information not promoting the products of a particular company. So, whenever you call up a website, see who is responsible. Sometimes companies make it easy. Just look for an About Us tab. Other times you have to look for a disclaimer. If there is no real details, one thing you can do is scroll on, go to the home page of a website, scroll down, and look for a copyright symbol, which is a little C within a circle. The name next to the copyright tells you who is responsible for the information. Then you could Google that information to see if they're a legitimate group. For example, there is an interesting website that gives information on all aspects about food called food.com. However, no one can tell simply looking at the website who's responsible for the content. It could have been a major food corporation. It could have been a group that's promoting a certain food additive. You couldn't be sure about the website. However, the copyright showed that the website was created by Scripps Media. And when you Googled the name Scripps Media, you would see that Scripps Media is a former newspaper company, Scripps Howard, that now is focusing on new media. Scripps Media owns the Food Network, owns HGTV, and other very popular cable channels. Since you know that Scripps Media is a legitimate news organization, you could use information from food.com with confidence and not worry about being conned by bad information or somehow misled, and not to worry that somehow the information is being shaved or twisted or somehow manipulated to meet a political agenda. Another good thing to do, Google the name of the website. There are groups who do patrol the internet and expose phony groups or groups that have a hidden agenda. There was a website that dealt with certain medical issues such as cleft palates and hair lips. There was one group and in this website, the information seemed to favor a certain organization. And it turns out that sure enough, it was a phony website created by that organization to help get charitable donations. And that information could be found out by Googling the name of the website. It's amazing. There are people who do police the internet to protect people from being misled or hoodwinked. So another measure, if you want to be doubly sure your information is reliable, in the old days of journalism, good reporter always got a second source for every story they wrote about, that they wouldn't accept the fact unless there was a second independent person who could collaborate the information. You may want to do the same thing when doing research on the internet. Now the problem is many groups will share the same piece of information, and so if you want to have collaboration, validation, see if you can find the same information on another website, but make sure it's not the same word for word. This can be easily done by taking a key phrase, a key sentence, putting it into a Google search engine, and seeing if there's another website that says basically the same thing, giving you confidence that the information is accurate. And last but not least, it's always better to leave something out than have yourself have that sort of embarrassing situation of having a professor tell you, you wrote this paper is very well written, but alas, you have facts that are out of date, you have facts that are wrong, and you should have made sure about this fact because the website was created by this phony group that's controlled by these billionaires, and they're trying to just get oil drilling in Alaska or something like that. Or put more simply, when in doubt, leave it out. Okay, good luck with your research. The internet can be a great tool, but you gotta be careful. Take care now. Bye-bye.